Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily News. I'm Nicholas Richardson. A dam on the Topola reservoir collapsed just before noon. The reservoir is located on the Nysa-Kłodzka River in Lower Silesia. The failure of the dam means a deadly danger for the municipality of Paszków, which lies in close proximity. The authorities have announced an evacuation. This is what the destructive power of the natural elements looks like in practice. The passage between the Topola and Kozielno reservoirs in Lower Silesia has been ruptured. Water has begun to flow down towards the Nysa River. For many residents of southwestern Poland, the situation is worse than during the so-called flood of the millennium.
Pamiętam doskonale powódź 97 roku.
I remember perfectly well the flood of 1997. It seems to me that the scale at this moment, at least yesterday, was much greater. Authorities in Opole and Wrocław have issued a flood alert. According to the worst-case scenario, the wave that will reach the capital of Lower Silesia on Wednesday evening will be at 3,100 cubic meters per second. The city's safety largely depends on the Raciborz Dolny reservoir, which was built in 2020. We, mindful of certain experiences, prefer to prepare for the maximum scenario. It is difficult to fully prepare for such a natural event. Tragic situations occurred in the vicinity of Bystryce Kłodzka. There, the water level was so high that it was impossible to reach some residents. I had to make a dramatic decision for me because I had to choose either the life of a single person or the 5 boys who were supposed to go there. Many towns in the Opole region are threatened by flooding. A total evacuation has been ordered by the mayor of Paszków, Artur Roka, who admitted on air that the information about the breach of the flood barrier was not given to him by the infrastructure manager until several hours after the fact. Today, when I received information from RZGW, the reservoir manager from Wrocław, at 10:54 a.m., a few hours after the rupture of this reservoir, I took immediate action on forced evacuation. Nearly 500 schools and kindergartens in 4 provinces in southwestern Poland have cancelled classes. The water destroyed some strategic infrastructure, cutting off some 50,000 people from electricity. The inconvenience could last for days to come. During the night, 33 hospital patients were evacuated from a hospital in Nysa using pontoons. The body of the facility's head doctor was found by rescue services. This is the 5th victim of the floods so far. In the towns that were flooded first, the subsiding water has already revealed the scale of the damage. In Głuchołazy and Kłodzko, the cleanup of the city and preliminary damage estimate is beginning. I think that Kłodzko has been through the worst of it. Now we'll just have to see exactly what the city looks like after this water subsides. In response to the scale of the devastation, Donald Tusk declared a state of natural disaster in the flooded areas. Even in the face of such a dangerous situation, he did not dare to allow TV Republic journalists into the press conferences, cutting off thousands of Poles from information. During the floods that are affecting residents of southern and western Poland, it is worth knowing about things, often simple things, that can save lives. For example, knowing about flags and their appropriate colour depending on the emergency. On its website and social media, the Prime Minister's office gave information for flood victims, but the information was incorrect. The media spread it en masse. Specifically, the announcement confused 2 of the 3 flags. If it were not for the fact that this could cost someone's life or health, it could be overlooked. But this situation, to call such an action irresponsible, is an understatement. So, for the record, a white flag, evacuation assistance is needed. A red flag, medical assistance is needed. And the blue flag, food and something to drink are needed.
A rescue operation in Głuchołazy. One of the residents asked the volunteer fire department for help in evacuation. As services fight against time to save lives, the government spreads misinformation. The website of the Prime Minister's office published incorrect information about the signal flag system used to call for help in emergencies. The consequences could have been drastic. The red and blue flag signs had been confused. In the correct version, it is the red flag that indicates a request for medical assistance. I have the impression that this mistake stems from a certain amateurism that prevails in the Prime Minister's office at the moment. It was a very dangerous mistake, and it could be a very costly mistake for people's lives and health, because it was spread further by national media. The issue is crisis management. After all, the Ministry of the Interior and Administration and the governors all report to the Prime Minister. If incorrect information appears in the media of the Prime Minister's office, which, under such conditions as we have today, can cost human lives, this is an embarrassment. The opposition warns that the services are not informed by the authorities in a substantive way. Some actions could have been taken earlier. We appeal to all our compatriots who today are in the areas that are under threat. Do not wait, evacuate. The experience on Friday shows that you can't always count on good communication. An example is the situation on Lake Nysa. According to information provided by Wody Polskie, on Friday, the discharge was about 30 cubic meters per second. On Saturday, it was already 200. On Sunday, due to the rupture of the dam in Stronie Śląskie, it was 1,000 cubic meters per second. The abandonment of the gradual discharge led to flooding of the Nysa River in the Opole region. Services are not always able to arrive. If only, as of Friday, they would have said outright that we were in for a disaster of the magnitude of 1997, and this could have been prevented, because this was not a tornado that came suddenly, that no one could see beforehand. In the Czech Republic, this water had already gathered. Alarms had been raised beforehand. As the situation changes by the minute, Prime Minister Donald Tusk is working to verify information. I have also made an appeal to all those who work with us to verify all information in a very precise way. Together with all of you, I will try to help those who are waiting for the actual forecasts and what may happen in their city, for example in Wrocław. In terms of informing and verifying information, our TV station is there to help. I knew about the fact that there would be a flood threat a week before, and the Prime Minister didn't know? Donald Tusk is preventing us from providing information to citizens. Today, we were once again not allowed to attend events he participated in. In the morning for a briefing in Warsaw, and in the afternoon for a crisis staff meeting.
Jestem redaktorem, jestem dziennikarzem. Panowie, uspokójcie się. Jesteśmy na żywo, to jest transmitowane w tej chwili na całą Polskę i cała Polska widzi, że to pan mnie dotyka. Proszę mnie zostawić. Szanowni Państwo, to jest skandal! Republika!
We are reporting the case to the prosecutor's office, and this case is not about the press law. This time, it's about creating a widespread threat, not allowing some of the largest media in Poland on the crisis staff, at a time when people are waiting for information on how they should behave and how to protect themselves. This creates a direct threat to the health, life, and property of these people. My appeal for caution and integrity in reporting on the catastrophic flooding. I am also informing you of a request to the prosecutor's office to prosecute officials who do not allow journalists to attend the press conferences of the anti-crisis headquarters, thereby bringing widespread danger to citizens. At the same time, the National Broadcasting Council will take the flood situation into account when examining the implementations of the terms of the license, including in matters of subscription collection. In such a situation, the Prime Minister and the government have an obligation to cooperate with all media, because all media reaches different recipients. On social media, Prime Minister Donald Tusk highlighted the involvement of members of the volunteer fire department in Głuchołazy, and rightly so, but he forgot about other services. Indeed, dividing the services is strange on part of the Prime Minister. And let us also recall that we are talking about the same services that were previously attacked. Today, one of the pillars of crisis management is the Territorial Defense Forces. Playing favorites when it comes to selected services creates the risk of unhealthy competition, and this in a situation where the services should cooperate. On Saturday, there was an accident involving the police chief Marek Boroń, his adjutant, and the driver. Our investigative journalist, Marcin Dobski, is checking whether the speed limit was exceeded. It is possible that the commander was rushing to a press conference with Donald Tusk. The case was taken over by the district prosecutor's office in the Tarnów Mountains. Chief Police Commander Boroń, the driver, and the adjutant were probably speeding, quote, on the bombs. You can see the wires. The speed limit in the place where they were speeding is 80 kilometers per hour. Was it worth risking your life to show up next to the Prime Minister on TV? And finally, an important reminder. The services working on the spot ask residents to listen to their announcements and adapt to them. This will significantly improve work and ensure safety. Konrad Chmioła, Republika.
Donald Trump has survived yet another assassination attempt. The would-be assassin tried to shoot the former president on a golf course in Florida. His life was saved by the Secret Service agent who spotted the attacker at the last moment. The American politician is safe, the criminal is in police custody, and more details about the incident are coming to light.
The assassin hid in the bushes on the golf course and waited for the former president about 300 yards away with an AK-47 in his hand. Fortunately, a Secret Service agent spotted him and began firing in his direction.
The Secret Service did exactly what they should have done. They provided exactly what the protection should have been, and their agent did a fantastic job.
The assailant tried to flee in a car, but after a short chase, police stopped him on the highway. The former president was not injured. He took to social media to thank the security agents and his supporters. I would like to thank everyone for their concern and good wishes. It was certainly an interesting day. Moments after this assassination attempt, Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance spoke with Donald Trump. I'm glad President Trump is safe. I spoke with him before the news broke and he was, amazingly, in good spirits. Still much we don't know, but I'll be hugging my kids extra tight tonight and saying a prayer of gratitude. The would-be assassin turned out to be 58-year-old Ryan Wesley Ruth, a North Carolina worker who has been actively involved in helping Kyiv since the start of the war in Ukraine. So far, we don't know what his motive was, but we do know that he prepared professionally for the attack. He had an AK-47 with a scope, extra magazines, and a GoPro camera to most likely film the attack on the former president. If bullets had reached Donald Trump there, he would have had a rather slim chance of coming out unscathed. Even if he was not killed, his injuries would have been serious. The assassination attempt was condemned by President Joe Biden and his vice president and Democratic nominee, Kamala Harris. I condemn political violence. We must all do our part to ensure that this incident does not lead to more violence. This is the second attack on Donald Trump in just 9 weeks. In July, an assassin opened fire at a campaign rally in Pennsylvania due to extreme negligence and security failures. Trump was wounded, 2 people were killed, including the assassin, and 2 others were seriously injured. According to some commentators, it was the Democratic Party's artificially inflamed mood that may have led to the tragedy, especially since yesterday's bomber was a declared supporter of the party of Biden and Harris. Since we're dealing with another Hitler, how many of us haven't dreamed of going back in time and preventing history from unfolding as it did in Germany in the 1930s? Donald Trump's campaign continues, and he continues to fight for the votes of the people. 49 days before the election, the difference between the candidates is within the margin of error. Rafał Stańczyk, Republika.
Disastrous floods also hit Poland's southern neighbours, the Czech Republic. A dam burst in Ostrava near the Polish border, flooding the city. Evacuations are underway. There has already been 1 death in this disaster, and people are missing. Other countries in the region, including Slovakia, Austria and Hungary, are also struggling with flooding. There is severe flooding in southern Poland and northern Czech Republic. Before the eyes of the desperate people, entire neighbourhoods in border towns are simply disappearing under the water. This disaster sweeps away entire homes as people barely manage to survive. This is where my house stood this morning. But within 10 minutes the water was everywhere. We had to jump out of the windows and run to our neighbours. Another 1,000 people in the Ostrava region were evacuated. A dam burst 35 kilometres from the Polish border. The situation is worsening by the minute. Water floods the city. In Vishnova, Opava, Jeszeniki and many other Czech towns, it has been raining non-stop for at least 3 days. Rivers have burst their banks, cutting off residents from the outside world. In Brno, a hospital had to be evacuated. Rescuers are working under extreme conditions. We are rescuing people who have fled to the roofs of their houses or are stuck in their own backyards. The current of the river is very strong and it is difficult to keep a boat afloat. Czech authorities warn that the worst of it may be to come as the rain hasn't stopped and more towns and villages are at risk, including those inland. Unfortunately, there has already been one death and 7 people swept away by a river are being searched for. But not everyone realizes just how serious the threat is. Some people refuse to evacuate even in a critical situation. They want to stay where they are. We are trying to reach those who need help and are fighting to save every life. More countries are preparing for the arrival of the flood. The level of the Danube in Bratislava has reached a critical point, and Slovakian services have been put on high alert. The same is true in Hungary, Germany and Austria, where the floods have already hit with tremendous force. The extent of the tragedy in Romania is only being revealed by the falling waters. There is despair and questions about what to do next, as it is impossible to live in flooded and destroyed homes. The flood destroyed everything. There is nothing left. Beds, furniture, floors, water and mud everywhere. More than 12,000 people have been evacuated in the Czech Republic. Due to rising water levels in the Opava River on the Polish-Czech border, 3 bridges in the towns of Bobalušky, Pranica and Ježkovice are impassable. This is a disaster of unprecedented proportions. Our entire neighbourhood is underwater. People will have to deal with the consequences of this tragic flood for a long time. The extent of the flooding is still difficult to predict. Czech hydrologists warn that flood waves on the Opava and Oder rivers could collide, posing a huge danger to people. The coming hours will be very difficult for the services and for the inhabitants. Martin Shevchak, TV Republica. That's the news. Thank you for watching, and from me it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.